I realized I haven't really sat down and talked about what happened when Leilani was born. It was just a normal day. I had a doctor's appointment before I started my work for the day, and it was May 5th. So the cool thing about it was we were gonna go get tacos because it was Cinco de Mayo, and Cinco de Mayo fell on a Taco Tuesday. It was supposed to be a really cool thing. Everybody was talking about it on the internet. I go in for a doctor's appointment thinking I'm gonna go in, they're either gonna give me good news or bad news about the placenta placement, see if my placenta was still too low lying, and if it was, that meant that I could have a lot of bleeding during birth. So they do an exam. You know something's wrong when you ask them, so how's it look? And they don't quite have an answer for you yet. That's how I knew something was wrong. I look at the technician and I asked her, did it move? And she says yes, and keeps looking and says, I'll be right back. And my stomach sank a little. I got scared at that point because they weren't telling me anything yet. She comes back in with another lady, and that lady says we have to do a physical exam. So we're gonna have to use some tools to kind of open you up, feel around. They had these really bright lights to shine in there to see, and I was really curious why they had to do that, but again, they still weren't really telling me anything. I think they wanted to get some answers before they said anything. I'm just sitting here panicking a little bit on the inside because I don't, the worst I'm thinking is my placenta is worse and I'm gonna have to have a C-section. She does the exam and looks at me and says, you are 3 centimeters dilated and 100% effaced. You have bulging waters. I just look at her. I'm like, what? I'm 31 weeks pregnant. I still have time. This is still too early. And they said, you got to go to the hospital now. We called and they're expecting you. And I'm a little overwhelmed. I'm grateful that they took care of that for me, but I'm sitting here thinking the worst is I'm going to have a C-section in 9 weeks, and they're telling me I have to go to the hospital now because pretty much if I go to use the bathroom, I might have my baby in a toilet. They give me a moment to kind of collect myself. I get dressed and I call John and I tell him what's going on, that I gotta go to the hospital now, and I just hear him say, guys, I gotta go. I can tell he's panicking and I feel terrible. I'm panicking and I'm scared because I have to go there alone because God knows where his current job site is. So I didn't know how long it was going to take for him to get from wherever he was to Annapolis. And I'm sitting there I'm so nervous. I have no idea what the next 24 hours is going to look like. Am I going to have a baby tomorrow? Am I not going to have a baby tomorrow? So the stores were already closed by then. This is at the beginning of the pandemic. So I call my boss and I tell him, they told me such and such. I gotta go to the hospital now. I don't know when I'm gonna be back to work. I may have to go on leave a little early. Only by 3 weeks. I was supposed to be going on leave soon anyway. So I think I was supposed to be going on leave June 6th, so a month I anticipated they would have already kind of had some things together for me to leave. They were able to figure that out on their end, and I went to the hospital. I get there and I tell them, I was told to come here and such, and they're like, okay, just show us your insurance card. And they put me in a triage room. I had to take off all my clothes and put on this gown, and they hooked me up to an IV and hooked me up to a monitor. And of course the IV made me have to pee every 10 minutes, so I had to keep unhooking myself from the monitor. And then John finally comes and they explain to us what's going on, and they said that I'm gonna have to get a steroid shot, which goes into your butt cheek. So that was fun. So I had to get that done. The OB that was on call told me, we're gonna have to put you on magnesium sulfate and you're gonna feel like crap. You're gonna feel really awful, but it should stop labor at least long enough for the baby to grow some more. And the steroids are to help her lungs develop. I'm scared, but I'm just like, whatever you have to do for her to be okay. So they monitor me for a while, and they're noticing that I am contracting, though they're small, but I'm consistently contracting and they're close together. So I have to stay and be put on the magnesium. They get me in a wheelchair and they wheel me off to the room that we'll be in for a while. We get to the room, and the nurses were just amazing. They were so sweet. They made us feel comfortable, and they made me feel like they understood that what I was going through was hard, and I appreciated that a lot more than I think they'll ever know or ever be able to express to them. I was terrified. Kind of had to just wait it out. So they had me hooked up to the magnesium, hooked up to an IV of like some fluids and stuff. They put all this stuff in my arm, like fall risks and allergies and my little hospital thing that they scan every time they got some other medicine for me. They had to scan this barcode, and they had a catheter in my other arm, and those are awful. I actually have like a permanent bump because I had a catheter in my arm for 9 days. So that was fun. I'm on the magnesium for about 10 hours. And, I'm flushed. It's really hot. John's running back and forth getting me ice packs, which are actually for after birth. They go in like this diaper thing to keep your genitals cool after they're on fire from birth. I was wrapping them around my neck and putting them behind my neck and on my forehead just to try to stay cool, because it made me feel better. It made it easier to tolerate. And it's late. It's nighttime. I know something's wrong. And I start getting really scared. I never told John this. I start coming to terms with making sure that she makes it even if I don't. Shortly after, kind of telling myself that, no matter what, I'm going to make sure that I hang on as long as I can for her, whether that be to try to keep her in or, to just stay alive. That's when I realized I can't lift my arms, and my ears start ringing and everything's going dark, and I know I'm gonna black out, and I don't know what that really means. And I say, pass out. And John says, yeah, I'm gonna pass out. Good night. I start panicking. Nurse. And I say it as clearly as I can, and I think I'm whispering this, but I'm trying to yell, nurse. And he pushes the button, and Like, I don't remember exactly what happens after that. Like, 6 people run in and a lady asked me to squeeze her hands, and I squeeze as hard as I can, and she says that's not good enough. And they're putting me on oxygen, and the oxygen helped. It was cool, and it helped me wake up some. And they shot me up with ephedrine, I believe it was. And after that, I got really jittery. They monitored me for a little bit, and they said that my blood pressure got to 59/30, which apparently is really bad. I felt like I was dying, and John looks at me and he said, "You were." Your brain wasn't getting any oxygen. I asked them, is she okay? Is the baby okay? Because if I'm not getting oxygen, how is she getting any oxygen? She didn't even respond. She's totally fine. She didn't even notice that anything was going on. She's fine. She's doing great. She's still moving around, and she's always been a busybody, still a busybody today, the whole time moving around. So after that happened, the on-call doctor at the time, I think it was Dr. Wells, she said, we're gonna take you off the magnesium. You're no good to your baby if you're dead. That was scary. I started feeling it happening again. Blood pressure plummeted. As soon as I felt it coming on, the ringing, the tunnel vision, I picked up and I called and I said, I think it's happening again. And a team of people rushed in again, and they had to do the same thing. They put the oxygen on me. This time they ran an EKG. They hooked all these little diodes or whatever on me to see if my heart was okay. And they were so confused. They were like, her heart's fine. Why is this happening? Why does this keep happening? And they said, they just had taken me off of it maybe 2 hours prior. It was still in my system. So hopefully it doesn't happen again. So they put me on like a fast drip of fluids, and it came through so fast my arm went cold. But I think it flushed me out pretty well because it didn't happen again. So that was a relief. After that, over the next 24 hours, they took me off of fall risk, and I was able to, go to the bathroom by myself and everything, and eat some food. I hadn't eaten anything since I got there. I was able to eat some food, and John went home and got some clothes and, got himself some food and brought me some Panera, and that was just kind of our next 5, 6, 7 days went. Probably like another week went by. It was just playing card games and me sleeping and them telling me to rest, and I was on an NSAID that was supposed to help since I couldn't take the magnesium, and I didn't have any trouble with that, so that was good. They had this tropical jello that I loved, and every time a nurse would ask me if I wanted anything, I would ask them for tropical jello, and we found out that we could use the little refrigerator in the room, and they would bring me a few at a time, and I would just stock them in there. It was okay. I got pretty depressed, because of COVID. I could only have one person. I was lucky that I could even have anybody. So, I was very thankful, but I was also very scared. There were women having babies in the NICU and everything that had COVID. So it was just really scary staying in a hospital in the middle of a pandemic. You didn't really know what you were going to come across. And being in hospitals freaks me out. So this was just, I was just a ball of anxiety. You know, I had John, but you know, when you have your baby, you're supposed to have your mom. You know, I wanted my mom to be there. I wanted my grandma to be there. I wanted, you know, my family to visit me. And I was just stuck in that room for 9 days. And it doesn't sound like that long, but it just felt like eternity. I felt guilty because I wanted it to be over. And I felt so guilty for feeling that way because I knew that every day that I kept her in was 3 days that she didn't have to be in the NICU. That's what they told us. And I felt guilty that I just wanted it to be over. And wanting it to be over meant that she had to be born, because being 100% effaced, there is no way that I was gonna make it to a term where she would be safe if she were born outside of a hospital. Like if I happened to have her at home. They told me that if I go into labor and I'm not in a hospital, you know, she might not make it. And they told me, we can't keep you here, but we don't advise you going home. So I knew that's what I had to do. We had to stay there. I feel so bad for John. He had to eat. And they brought me awful hospital food. Give me any salt and pepper. It's so sad looking. It's so sad. Oh God. He had to eat all this junk food and eat out all the time. He's used to me cooking all the time. I know he was starting to feel like trash, but I appreciated him sticking by me. It was tough. May 12th. Would have had to spend another 11 days before they say it's safe for you to go home if you haven't delivered yet. So, the weird thing though, I started secreting colostrum and it was like bright yellow, staining my clothes. I was like, this is weird. This is strange. And I told my mom about it and she's like, you're gonna have that baby soon, because that means that your body's ready for her to be here if you're producing that. So, and I took her word for it. Regular day in the hospital, and I'm in good spirits on this particular day. You know, it kind of settled in that, you know, we're just gonna be here. And the nurses were so nice. Moved us into a room since they figured we're gonna be here for a while. You know, an antenatal thing where you're kind of in between. They move us to a room that has a bed for John, which I feel much better about, because he was sleeping on like a makeshift bed, like it was a couch, and they gave him some sheets and a pillow, and his back was killing him, and he already has problems with like his hips and stuff, and I just felt so bad for him having to sleep on that thing. So now he finally had a bed, and we were to be a little more comfortable. It had a nice view. They said, you know, we wanted to get you a room that could look outside so you didn't feel so isolated. You didn't feel so much like you were in a hospital. They were so nice. They really took care of us. John says, I'm gonna get some food. Is there anything you want before I go get some food for myself? And he goes and gets me like a super fruit smoothie thing from some smoothie place that did like pickup orders. You're kind of in and out. He goes to Steak and Shake like 20-30 minutes away And he says, don't do anything until I get back. And he leaves, and I go into labor. They hook me up to the machines, and I'm feeling kind of weird. The cramps are getting worse, and they hook me up to the machine. They say, yeah, you're in labor, so we're gonna keep you hooked up to the machine, and we're just gonna watch you. And I call him, and he's like, what did I tell you? I told you to wait. So he has to inhale his food and rush back. And he gets there, and I'm like, you didn't have to rush, because it's not like the baby's gonna come in 2 seconds. But he gets there, and we're just in for a long night. It's a long night. I doze in between. I'm basically sitting up, because curling over is the only way that I can really handle the pain. They tell me, they ask, do you want anything for pain relief? And I ask them what my options are, and they say, well, if you get an epidural, she's definitely gonna have to go to the NICU, just 32 weeks. So if you get an epidural, you're not gonna be able to follow her for, I think they said 6 to 8 hours. And that was not an option. I wanted to be able to follow right after her. So they tell me there's another medicine they can give me, but it's going to make her too drowsy, and they need her to be as alert as possible so that they can assess whether she needs oxygen or whatever else. They have to see what her current state is to see what facility she'll need when she's in the NICU. So that wasn't an option either. I'm out of options. I'm in this. This is the natural birth that I wanted. I would have been okay with doing, the pain relief that would have made her a little drowsy, because I saw my mom get an episiotomy, and that scars you for life. We're in it. We're just waiting, and I'm listening to music on the speaker, and I'm breathing, and I'm taking naps kind of where I can, and we get to a point where they don't want to check, because my waters have been bulging for a week. They don't want to touch it, because if they touch it, my water's going to break. But they get to a point where they have to check. So they check, and they tell me I'm 7 centimeters, which is great. Almost there. And the doctor goes to take his fingers out, and my water breaks. It's just everywhere. I'm wearing one of John's t-shirts. It gets all on the bottom of his t-shirt, and it's just flooding, and it feels really weird, because it feels like you're peeing very intensely, but you can't stop it. So you're just gushing fluids. The contraction I had immediately following my water breaking, I have never felt pain like that before. I had to keep telling myself that when you're in pain like that, you have to try not to go crazy. I started feeling a little insane. I understand why women scream. I understand why women cry and beg, and I understand why women vomit. I understand why women pass out. I understood why all of the things that tend to happen during this transition stage. I understood why. Oh boy. Just breathe. There wasn't really anything that I could do. I was running real hot, so John and the nurses kept getting me those ice packs, and I was going through those things. It was a few minutes, I was burning through them. That's how hot I was.
Ice pack? Yes. You want another one?
Another ice pack?
Yeah.
And I almost felt bad. I was like, man, I'm wasting all these things. I'm just going through them. I just remember I'm being so tired. I barely got any sleep. And any sleep I got, there wasn't any real rest. Because, you know, I'm dozing through contractions. They start getting really close together. So it's like I get a minute to breathe, maybe 2, and there's another one, and it just felt like my bones were grinding together and starting a fire inside my body. I don't think it really registered with me yet that she was coming until I said, oh my God, I think I'm pooping. They said, no, wait, the doctor's not here yet. They're like trying to get me to they're like, don't push, don't do anything. I'm like, I'm not trying to push, but my body is pushing some for me, and I panic. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? What's gonna happen? One of the nurses does an exam, and she goes, I don't feel a cervix. John is just, poor guy. You could see the lack of sleep on his face, and he's just like trying to hang in there. It's a lot of energy, a lot going on, and he handled it so well. I gotta say, I didn't think he would be as level-headed as he was. He was my rock. He was misting my face and getting me ice packs, holding my hand. And the nurses said they honestly hadn't seen such a supportive partner before. So I was very lucky to have him there. They check me again, and I'm 8 centimeters. In about 10 minutes, I go from 8 to 10 centimeters. So all those contractions I was feeling, and she dropped real fast, and it happened really quickly. I had to start pushing. They got me ready to push. I pushed as efficiently as I could. I didn't scream, I didn't yell, nothing. I pushed. I took a deep breath and I held it in and I pushed. That's what they told me to do. I did what they told me to do.
Again.
And push. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
You don't
You
get
relax
down.
your knees out. Yeah.
I think I did that maybe 10 minutes. During they asked me if I wanted to feel the top of her head, and I reached down and I felt her head, and she was so small. And she had a lot of hair. I knew she was gonna have hair. No one believed me. John said, all my kids are bald. All my kids were bald when they were born. It's like, she's gonna have hair. I had a lot of hair when I was born. My siblings had a lot of hair when they were born. It's like, those genes are strong. I'm telling you, she's gonna have hair, and she did. I think it was a couple more pushes after that, and it was like once her head was through, the rest of her just like fell out. I didn't know what to feel. There was so much to feel. Her not being in my body, the IV in my arm, the antibiotics, the fluids, the nurses talking, the doctor trying to get her to cry, wiping her off. I just remember I focused in on one thing, and that was, please breathe. I was just praying that the steroids worked and that I did a good job. The 7-8 days that I was able to keep her in, that it helped. And then she started crying. And there's just this relief, because she was crying hard. She was mad. I was just so thankful that she was breathing. on her own. She never had to get hooked up to oxygen, and that was in itself, for how early she was just a blessing. John looks at me, and we had already talked about this. I told him, when they take her to the NICU, you follow. I will be okay. The important thing is to go with her. Sign whatever paperwork you gotta sign, get her checked in there, get her settled in. I'll be following right behind. And I just have this relief, it's over. I already feel my inside settling back into place. Is nuts. It was happening so fast. My uterus was already shrinking, and every 15 minutes, and then after a while it was every 30 minutes, and then after a while it was every hour. They had to push on my stomach real hard to see where my uterus was, to make sure it was shrinking back down at a normal rate. And I'm lucky it was all good, but that was painful. But they were asking me, like, did I want all these pain medications? And I was like, can I have some Tylenol? I think some Tylenol would be good. Just give me a couple of those. A couple of extra strength Tylenol, I'll be all right. They were like, yeah, okay. Sure. Because I needed to be as alert as possible. I didn't want to be all drugged up. I wanted to be alert. I popped a couple Tylenol. I ate some breakfast, and they wheelchaired me to the NICU, and I got to do some, skin to skin with her, and she was just so small and pink. Her color was just pink. She's so teeny and wrinkly and small. And I just couldn't believe it. She was here. She just looks so breakable. I'm used to dealing with, normal sized babies, and just, less than 4.5 pounds. She was here. Little Leilani. May 13th, 6:11 a.m. She made it. And she was great. Monitored for 24 hours after that, so that was my ninth day in the hospital, and I just wanted to be home. They said I could stay longer if I wanted one more day, but I needed to be home. We went home and kind of washed the hospital off, and it was really difficult being home without her. You feel this betrayal, like your body betrayed you. Didn't do one of the few things it's supposed to do, didn't even do it right. And you fight with yourself. I joined some support groups and try to come to terms with that, a normal pregnancy, and a normal birth, and a normal experience bringing your baby home. All that was taken. I didn't get any of that. And I know people meant well when they said, take advantage of being able to sleep, while you can, while she's in the hospital. And it's just no amount of sleep is worth not going home with your baby. I was okay most days when we went to see her and had to go back home, but some of those days I couldn't handle it. Just watching her, hooked up to all that stuff, hooked up to all the wires and the IVs. It was a lot. Now she's this bright and busy little girl who would rather stand than crawl, and grabs everything and says hey. Every day is an adventure. You never know what to expect. She has a community that she'll always be a part of. She'll always be a preemie. She'll always have that, and I think that there's something special about that. We're just really lucky that with her being so early, 7.5 weeks, that she's thriving as much as she is. You honestly would never know. It will always be hard. I liked to think that, you know, I get over it, but there are a lot of women that, you know, this was a trauma, and it took a lot for me to accept that too, that, you know, I went through a trauma. I'm always gonna hurt some when I think about what I had to go through and the things I had to think about, the realities that I had to accept. I will say one thing. I understand my mom more and more every day. I have a whole new appreciation for just being a mom in general. We got through it. I don't know if I ever really would have without John or my mom. So I'm really thankful for my family, especially John. Man, I was a wreck when she was in the NICU, and he was just so lovable. The calmest I ever seen him. I really appreciate him, and I'm glad he's her dad. That's all I got. You know, we're here now, and I was strong, and I'm proud of myself. You see yourself? Ooh. Whoa. Where are you going? No. No.